Thank you all for joining us for the Overcoming Writer's Block and Perfectionist Tendencies workshop. Joining us today is Erin Zimmerman from the Writing Center. I'm going to hand it over to her and she's going to get us started. Thank you.
Hi everyone, so let me send you all, just so you have it, this is the PDF of the presentation that I'm going to be discussing today, and let me see if I can do this screen share. Don't use WebEx very often, so let's see. Can you all see that?
We can see it. I think you just want to put it in presentation mode.
It is in presentation mode. Let me do it by screen then. Screen. Okay, is that working for you?
Perfect.
Excellent. All right, so I'm Erin Zimmerman. I'm the director of the Writing Center. This is my start of my second semester here at UNLV. So I'm excited to get to give this presentation for a second time. We actually extended the length of it a little bit here, just so that you could have a little bit more time to have some hands-on practice with some of the strategies that I'm going to be talking about today. So I'm excited to have that time to implement those. So to jump right in, these are the topics that we're going to try and cover here in this workshop. So some of the reasons that maybe you have writer's block or have had it in the past, maybe you will have it in the future, covering imposter syndrome, which is something that happens a lot to graduate students in particular, but not only to them. Thinking about how perfectionism can impact writer's block, identifying a lot of these strategies that can help you jump back into your writing when you're feeling stuck. And learning just a variety of ways of writing through these sorts of problems. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have time to do writing throughout the presentation. Hopefully many of you have watched The Good Place. So we see Janet here having one of Janet's wailing moments. And probably this is a feeling that you all can relate to, in particular when it comes to your writing. Writing is a difficult and complex task that really is hard and often isn't talked about in a way that really identifies just how difficult it is for us to do, especially when it comes to academic writing and writing long documents like many of you are working on right now. So we often think about writing as fingers on a keyboard or, a pen or pencil on paper, but there's really a lot more happening inside of you as you're writing. So you're reflecting on interests, experiences, conversation, learning that's happening in the classroom. You're stopping and you're reading about a topic in order to then later write about it. You're creating questions, you're researching, trying to answer those questions. You're maybe talking with others to kind of work through your ideas. You're translating thoughts that are in your brain into words that you can put on the page. You're identifying who your audience is, what it is that they need to know, how to communicate with them. You're taking breaks because, we all know you got to step away sometimes and come back with fresh eyes. You're outlining, you're taking notes, you're drafting, you're revising, you're editing, you're proofreading, you're polishing, right? All of this is going into to what we call writing. So no wonder it's difficult, right? A lot of things are happening and a lot of times they're all happening at once. So it's okay that we get stuck sometimes. It's normal even for us to get stuck. So what I want us to kind of start with is doing a reflection, and those of you who were at the presentation yesterday morning, sort of getting your writing started, did a little bit of reflection and sort of know the metacognitive benefits of this. But the goal here, as always, is to help you be more mindful of what is working for you and what isn't working for you. So to start, I want to have you all just reflect a little bit on your writing attitudes and your writing habits. So if you would get a piece of paper, or open up a Word document, or however, wherever you like to write, and just sort of jot these answers to some of these questions down for me. And these are just for you, so they don't need to make sense to anybody else. You're not going to be sharing them with anyone. So just write for yourself. Okay. So thinking about your writing attitudes, let's start with, what do you like about writing? So just take maybe 30 seconds or so. Jot down anything that comes to mind about what you like about writing. Okay, and so then what do you dislike about writing? And these maybe overlap, but not necessarily. What do you feel like your writing strengths are? And you probably guessed the next one. What are your writing weaknesses? Okay, so then a few more questions, but these focus more on habits. So, not so much your thoughts and feelings, but what it is that you actually do when you're writing. So, how about when you just start writing an assignment? You've been given a task, you've gotten feedback on something, you've got to go back and read it and start making changes, those sorts of things. You're beginning something. What's your process for thinking through the work you have to do, and how do you sort of formulate your ideas and get started here before you actually really begin to draft? All right. So, also, where do you go to write? What is your workspace like? What is it that you need to have around you? And this could be actual physical items, or it could be more sort of ambiance, maybe lighting, sound. But what is it that you really need to have in order to write? Maybe you write with a pen and paper. Maybe you write on a tablet. Right? What is it that you need? Where do you go? All right, and then think about the actual action of writing. Do you write for long periods? Maybe you sit down for 4 hours and write that whole time. Maybe you write in bursts and need to take breaks. Maybe you kind of jump around when you get stuck or come up with a new idea, or maybe you have to write entire sections or paragraphs all the way through. Maybe you edit as you go, or maybe you do it later. Maybe you ask for feedback along the way, or you wait till the end. What are some of these actions that actually take place when you're writing? All right, so next, how do you revise and edit? And what is it that lets you know that the piece of writing is actually completely done? You're ready to submit it. All right, next is the question everybody likes. How do you procrastinate? What do you do to take your mind off of things and just be mindless for a little while? And then the very last question, how do you then motivate yourself to get back to writing when you realize, oh, I'm procrastinating? What do you do? All right. So, probably a lot of the things that you've written down are not that surprising to you because you've been doing them for quite a long time. But maybe you've never actually stopped to think about these things and what it is that is working for you, or maybe some things that aren't working for you. Maybe you realize that now with COVID, you're stuck in your house and it's too quiet and you actually need some ambient noise or things like that, right? So this can be a way to just kind of stop, pay attention to what it is you're doing in a moment, especially if you're feeling a little stuck, to help you keep moving forward and figure out what it is that you need around you, or what actions you're taking, or the ways that you're feeling about the particular task that you're doing, to make some adjustments, right? And feel like you have a little bit more control when you're feeling stuck to be able to move forward. So just keep that away. That's for yourself. Like I said, we are going to keep writing, and this might be something that you want to look back at as we keep going. But just having those things, and again, sort of paying attention as you're writing over the next few weeks, I think can help you make sure that you are developing really strong writing habits to help you get to the goals, reach the goals that you're trying to achieve. All right, so thinking about writer's block and what it is, why it is that we get stuck. So writing anxiety, writer's block, these are terms that I'm sure that you've heard, that basically identify these apprehensive and pessimistic feelings that we have about writing. So these feelings may not be pervasive, meaning that they happen all the time, right? Often they're happening at certain times. They're situational, right? And I think what's really important to note about writer's block is that, we're not born anxious writers. We become anxious or blocked because we've had difficult or negative experiences with writing. Whether, we've been told at some point that we're a bad writer, whether we're writing something that we've never written before and it feels daunting. All of these sorts of things play into writer's block and us feeling like we're now stuck. Sorry, there's a bug flying around my head. Um, so often, I mentioned this before, many graduate students feel like they sort of don't belong. They don't know, what they're doing. They don't have the qualifications needed to do the work, especially if you're writing a dissertation or a thesis. All of a sudden, you're starting to feel a little bit of doubt, insecurity, maybe feeling like you're a fraud, even though that's not the case, right? But because you're doing something new, because you're surrounded by your professors, these higher level professionals who have worked in the field for decades, who have way more experience and knowledge than you do, you start to feel like, oh, I'm not in the right place. I'm not at the level that they are. Um, and it's because you're just starting out in your field, right? This is where you're supposed to be. Every professional, every professor that you worked with has been where you are now. So understanding that and knowing that many of us do or have felt that way can be helpful. But also know that that it's not true, right? That you're not a fraud, that you do deserve to be where you are, right? It's just challenging right now in this moment, and time and work and experience is going to help you through this. So often feelings that sort of correlate to imposter syndrome are this feeling of being a fraud, that you don't really belong, that you're just lucky to be here, or you sort of downplay your achievements. But again, you do belong. This is where you're supposed to be. You're doing the work that you're supposed to be. So you've got to try and learn to kind of push past these feelings. And remember that this is your research. You know, at some point in this process, you're going to know more about this topic than your advisor. Maybe not quite yet, but soon, as you keep going, you're soon going to be the expert. So of course there are other factors that cause writer's block. So if imposter syndrome isn't something that resonates with you as potentially a cause for getting stuck or feeling like this is a challenge or you're out of place, right? There's a whole other list, many things, right, that cause writer's block. So perhaps you have your own inner critic, right? That's sort of holding you to a certain bar or helping or sort of stymieing your ability to keep making progress because something's not right with what you're working on and you need to fix it, right? It might be because you've had criticism in the past. I hear a lot of students, unfortunately, talk about teachers who have told them that they're bad writers, and that they really take that in and hold on to that, and that hinders their ability to continue to make progress writing well in the future. You might have a fear of failure, right? Oh, this isn't going to be any good, right? I'm going to fail my defense, or perhaps even the opposite. There's worry that, oh, if this is a success, then I'm going to have to live up to this level of work all the time. Sometimes you're holding overly high expectations. The thesis, the dissertation, an article published in a journal, right? These are very high stakes types of writing. But at the end of the day, the writing doesn't have to be perfect, right? There's sort of this sense of perfectionism that comes with these high expectations. And so being able to sort of identify that and level that out can be helpful for you. Sometimes you get stuck because you're exhausted, you're burned out, you have other things going on in your life, especially right now, right? So you're distracted and can't focus. Sometimes that lack of focus has to do with you're not getting enough sleep, right? Maybe you're not able to do the exercise that you would normally do right now because of social distancing. So those can cause us to get stuck. It might be that you're writing in a new form, a new genre, writing a longer piece than you've ever had to write before. It feels overwhelming and causes us to not be able to move forward sometimes. Sometimes it might be that you're really close to the topic, and because it's very personal to you, it's hard for you to say some of the things that need to be said. Sometimes you have too much that you need to say, and trying to cram it in is getting difficult and overwhelming. Sometimes you feel like you don't have enough to say, and so perhaps why even bother, right? Or you might have too much or not enough to do, right? If you have too much to do in the amount of time, that's really hard to navigate, and then you stop sleeping, you stop eating, you stop paying attention to some of the basic needs. Or if you don't have enough to do, it's a whole lot easier to keep pushing it off, right? And then, of course, we have these approaching deadlines, right? At the end of the day, this work has to be done. It has to be done by this date. And all of a sudden, we're focusing on that date, panicking, right? And that is, again, causing us to get stuck. So again, I want us to take just a moment to reflect here on your own writer's block. So again, some of these things maybe resonated with you, some of them didn't, right? Everybody is a writer in their own individual nature, right? You have your own processes, you have your own needs, you have your own feelings about writing. So your writer's block, the ways that you get stuck, are also going to be distinctive to yourself. So again, thinking about how that's happening for you can potentially help you identify when those moments are going to happen, or figure out when you need some strategies to be able to then move forward. So take just a few minutes. I've got a few questions here that I'd like for you to reflect on and answer. So why is it that you get stuck? Maybe think about the most recent time this has happened, or maybe you can think more generally, kind of across your past writing experiences. What are some of the feelings or maybe even physical reactions that you have when you get stuck? At what point in your writing, or at what time during the process, or maybe even times of day, right? Times within the amount of time that you have before your deadline, maybe you get stuck somewhere along that way. When does that happen? And then how is it that you get stuck? Sort of what really is going on in that moment, okay? So take just a few minutes and think about those and jot some of those ideas down. So if you're still writing, take maybe another 15 seconds or so. So I also want to make sure that I say that the list that I presented to you is not all inclusive, right? There are many ways that writer's block is caused, many things that impact it. I will say I can't see the chat because of sharing my screen, but if any of you have some causes of writer's block that weren't really listed in my list, you might write it in the chat, because what you're experiencing might resonate with others as well. So if you feel comfortable, you might want to post some of those in there, and I can take a look too once we're finished with the presentation. So something that some of you maybe talked about in terms of how writer's block sort of manifests itself in your work is that we often tend to kind of hyper focus in certain areas. And so this can be caused by assumed expectations. So I talked a minute ago about maybe you yourself have overly high expectations for the quality of work that you're supposed to do. But especially with graduate students, there's often high expectations of what they think their committee or their advisor wants of them. And so if they're not achieving what they think those expectations are, it kind of causes them to go in circles, to kind of go into a tailspin instead of being able to move forward. So that's something to pay attention to. If you feel like that's happening, it might be worth talking to your advisor about their expectations and what the realistic goal is for you and your work. Sometimes writer's block can manifest in analysis paralysis, right? Where you're overthinking your data so much that you just can't move forward, right? You become paralyzed and you can't identify solutions. You can't sort of come to results or decide upon a course of action because the data is there and it just needs to keep being analyzed, and that's problematic. Sometimes there's this feeling of not having enough, so needing to keep reading and researching, right? You're working on your dissertation and you have a theme or a topic that you need to include in your literature review, and you've read a few texts, a few sources, but is that enough? Maybe there's something else out there. You need to go find it, right? So figuring out when to cut that off. Editing to oblivion is something that happens. This feeling that, oh, it's not perfect yet, it's not perfect yet, it's not perfect yet. This sentence, I can't get it to do what I want it to do. That just sort of, becomes this hyper focus that stalls you from being able to move on to the next thing. And then, all of these are somewhat connected, but taste versus ability is one that often sort of, comes up in various ways with a lot of these things. And this is an abridged quote from Ira Glass talking about taste versus ability, saying that nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone told me. For the first couple of years you make stuff, it's just not that good. It's trying to be good, it has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you, right? These expectations that you have. A lot of people never get past this phase. They quit. We all go through this. And if you are just starting out or you are still in this phase, you've got to know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. It's going to take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just got to fight your way through. And I think this is super helpful because, again, you're entering your discipline, right? You're not at the expert level of your professors and of the writers and scholars of these sources that you're reading. And that's okay. You're not supposed to be there. You're supposed to be at the beginning. So recognizing that and cutting yourself some slack can be super helpful. And one thing that I wanted to share, some of the best advice that I got before writing my dissertation was from a professor who basically said that, he stood in front of a classroom with a whiteboard behind him and said that if everything that I ever write in my life encompasses this whiteboard, then the dissertation is going to be the size of a postage stamp, right? And I thought that was super helpful because it really put into perspective that, this one piece of writing, that you're doing is not, the ultimate thing that you're going to create in your life. It's just one piece of everything. Right. So, yes, you want it to be fantastic, but you're still learning. Right. And that's OK. You're going to be learning for a while longer. So make your work as good as you can, but understand that your abilities aren't at their peak. You've still got time in the future to do more and more work and be able to move forward. And so I think a lot of this, again, sort of comes back to this idea of perfectionism. And I love this quote by Anne Lamott, that perfectionism will keep you cramped and insane your whole life. And it is the main obstacle between you and a shitty first draft. So I don't know if you all talked about shitty first drafts and, your freshman composition kinds of classes, but Anne Lamott kind of coined this term, shitty first draft, and she says, all good writers write them. This is how they end up with good second drafts and terrific third drafts. Start by getting something, anything down on paper. A friend of mine says that the first draft is the down draft. You just get it down. The second draft is the up draft. You fix it up. You try to say what you have said already and say it more accurately. And the third draft is the dental draft, where you check every tooth to see if it's loose or cramped or decayed or even, God help us, healthy. So the idea of writing a shitty first draft really helps to eliminate this need to find perfectionism, right? Because you just are starting somewhere. That's the goal often with writer's block, is that we need to get past that initial hurdle to get started. Whether it's starting from the very beginning or getting started on the next particular thing. And I think this also helps to eliminate this need for having perfect situations, which sometimes can impede what we're doing. So, over the last few weeks, you've maybe even said, I could do A, B, or C on my project today, but I'm just going to wait till the boot camp gets started, right? That is absolutely 100% something that I would do. You're waiting for that perfect time of day, that perfect location, the perfect mood, the perfect sources, whatever the case may be. But that causes you to just keep pushing work off. And obviously that can be problematic. So what we're going to try and do here through the rest of the presentation is really cover a lot of strategies that can help you kind of put this aside, move your writing forward. And the way that I think about these strategies are tools for a toolbox, right? So, you need to hang a photo on the wall, right? You might need a hammer, you might need a tape measure, you might need a level. There are lots of tools in that toolbox that you're going to leave in the toolbox, but for another project, they're going to be helpful, right? So think about these in that same way, that there might be a moment where you can pull it out and use it, but maybe you're not going to use it right now. Maybe you're not going to use it ever, but having it there gives you that archive so that when you're stuck, you can kind of dig through and see, okay, what might help me right now. Okay, so just right before we jump into the individual strategies, I wanted to share this quote with you from Helen Sword. So Helen Sword wrote a book called, I think it's Air and Light and Time and Space. I have the information for you later on in the slideshow and on a handout that I'll give you. And so Sword examined 1,323 academic staff, PhD students, and postdoc researchers across 15 countries to learn how they write. And so this is what she found, that writing is neither a daily routine nor a rare occurrence, neither an immovable constant nor a random event. The secret to academic success lies in a complex cluster of attributes and attitudes that I call their writing base: behavioral habits of discipline and persistence, artisanal habits of craftsmanship and pride, social habits of collegiality and collaboration, and emotional habits of positivity and resilience. So I think these are super helpful, again, for us to think about writing as being really complex, right? It's not just fingers on a keyboard, pen on paper. There's behavioral habits that affect how we write, when we write, habits of craftsmanship, right? There's the social aspects of it, emotional aspects of it. All of this is impacting our writing every day, every moment, right? So the strategies that I'm going to present, they're not really divided up into these base categories, but these categories are sort of going to be covered in a lot of the strategies. So I think you'll see a lot of overlap. And I am going to give you the information about her book and about a website that she has where you can discover your own base habits. Yeah, let me move forward. We'll skip that one part. keep going. All right, so strategies. So often problems, as I talked about with getting stuck, sort of lie in how do I get started, right? And that can be, I've just gotten through, my comprehensive exams or whatever, my thesis proposal, and now suddenly I have to start writing my thesis. So it might be that, or it might be, okay, it's Monday and I took the weekend off and now I've got to get back to it, right? It could be I just finished this section, now I have to move into another section, right? We're constantly having to start and restart. So these strategies kind of focus on, how to move past the blinking cursor on Microsoft Word. I think if you have a newer version of Microsoft Word, it doesn't blink anymore. But just that moment of staring at the blank page and what do I do? How do I start? So first, take notes, right? So who says that writing begins when you title your piece of paper thesis, right? That's not it. So writing is taking many forms and getting anything down, right? Thinking shitty first drafts, even thinking before a shitty first draft, right? Take notes. What is it that you've read? What do you think about? What do you know right now? What questions do you have? What are your hypotheses? What are your plans, right? That can help you just get started. Think in terms of drafts, right? You're going to revise no matter what. So it's better to have something to revise than nothing to revise. So get that shitty first draft started, okay? You don't necessarily have to start at the beginning. You can write in pieces, but just, have something that then later you can work with. Break larger tasks into smaller tasks. This is a big one, right? Especially when you're writing a long document. So don't think, okay, my goal is to write my literature review, right? Think about, okay, I need to take notes on this particular source that's really important, or maybe here's a topic that I need to cover, and here's what I've read about so far in these sources that touch on that topic, right? If you focus on thinking about that as your goal, it's a lot more manageable. It's something that you can more easily cross off your list. It's not going to take as much time, right? It's actually doable. It's going to make you feel like you're making progress and keep you invested in your work because there's forward motion. So make outlines and lists. So sometimes we get stuck just because we're trying to remember everything, in our brain, whether it's our to-do list or whether it's actually related to what it is that we're working on in this moment. But getting it out means that then you can see it, you can play around with it. It's not in your brain anymore. You don't have to worry about remembering it. And these can be as formal or as informal as you like, right? You don't have to have Roman numeral 1 introduction, right? But keep track of things. Don't worry that you're going to forget things. Also start with what you know. So a lot of times writers need to or feel the need to begin at the beginning, right? And especially if you're writing an article, a thesis, a dissertation, that doesn't make sense. You're not necessarily going to write the first sentence of your introduction first. You're going to start somewhere else. So start with what you know. And this was something that actually was incredibly helpful for me when I sat down to work on the proposal for my dissertation. I had no idea what to do because everyone in my department, in the English department, was telling me to start with my literature review. And for me, that just didn't make sense. And it was a friend of mine who was actually in the fashion department who was like, well, but you know what you're going to do, right? Start with your methods. And as soon as she said that, it was like, oh, okay, I can do that, right? So start where you know what it is that you want to say. Start there and then work up to the more difficult things once you have some momentum, or maybe once time has passed, you'll know what it is you need to say. So also think about speed writing as sort of a tangible action that you can do. So this is good for people who are competitive, especially with yourself. If you only have a short amount of time to write, so maybe you've got 5 minutes before your next class, or if you just kind of need an energy boost, set a short timer. And what you do is you basically don't stop typing or writing. You might even set sort of a word length goal, maybe try to write 500 words in 5 minutes, right? Like this is gonna give you that jolt to keep you going or to get you started. This also helps you kind of turn off that internal editor because you have to keep going. You can't sort of stop and wait, is that how I wanted to say that? You've just got to get it out. It's not going to be good, right? It might be awful, but there's probably going to be something in there that you can work with, that you can take and turn into another draft, right? You could even do this multiple times. You can speed write sort of multiple times, stop, pick out the thing that, oh, this is really good. Let me focus on this now, right? And speed write again. So another action is to free write. So with free writing, it's sort of similar to speed writing because you could time yourself if you wanted to. The goal is to write as fast as possible, but you're focused more on a particular issue or question. So maybe you'll pose a question sort of like what I did earlier, and then take time to write your answer as quickly as possible. Again, your goal is to not edit, but to just get ideas out and then go back and polish it later. Mind dumps are another action similar to these others. When you have lots of thoughts in your head and you just need to sort of get them all out, right? So if it's something emotional, getting it out is going to help you focus on the task at hand. Maybe you're just irritated or stressed out about something else in your day. Get that out. Now focus on the task at hand. Or it could just be that you have, a lot of ideas for your project, lists of tasks that you need to do in the next week or so. Again, just dump them all out onto the page, and that's going to be helpful again for you to move forward in some way. If you're somebody that gets distracted by editing as you write, one thing you can do is turn off the editing tools in Microsoft Word or find a different text editor. So don't get caught up in every single little, green or red squiggly line in Word. Don't get so caught up in going back and rereading each sentence as you write. Try and turn those off so that you can keep moving forward. And then finally, change direction. So if you usually type, maybe you're going to write by hand for a few minutes, or vice versa, right? Or maybe you're shifting to a different task because you've kind of gotten stuck on one, or you're just exhausted of doing the one thing that you've been doing for the last couple of hours. So go to a different section or chapter right there. Maybe there's a section that you need to go back and edit, take some time to do that. Maybe you need to still go through your bibliography and organize some of your text, or maybe you've added some more sources and need to put those into the bibliography. See if there are some ways that if you don't necessarily want to stop working on the project, but kind of need a break from what you're doing right in that moment, see if you can kind of jump to a different task. And that way you're still being productive, you're still moving forward, but you're not using maybe the same part of your brain that you've been using for all this time. So what I'd like for us to do now is kind of implement some of these strategies. So the first thing that I would like for you all to do is to think about the task that you either are currently working on, that you kind of pressed pause on before this workshop started or before the day started, or if you kind of finished something, what it is that you're planning to do next. So again, this is just for you, but just, you know, in 1 or 2 sentences, what is the task that you're doing that is the next thing that you're going to do? So jot that down.
Hi, Erin. I think you mentioned you can't see the chat.
You cannot.
So we have a question.
Okay.
I'll just say it out loud. Someone asked, how do I keep track of where I am in my document? How do I walk away or look somewhere in my big document and then jump back to where I was a minute ago?
Oh, that's a good question. I assume you're working in Microsoft Word, just since that's kind of default now. What I would do is either highlight, most of my documents have lots of different text colors in them because, oh, this is something I need to come back in and do, and the color sort of helps me identify what it is that I need to do, as well as locate it in the document. You could also do, like the comment bubble on the side. Even if you don't write anything in it, it's going to help you locate really quickly, oh, this was where I was, right, as I go somewhere else. And, you could always make notes in terms of, this is the thing that I still need to do on it, or the next step in my task is this. So I would do something like that, just to sort of in some way highlight, in the text that this is where I am, this is what I need to do, or this is, something, a flag that's going to help me jump back to the thing that I was working on before.
So there's a follow-up, and it says, basically the question is how to jump from, say, the bibliography back to the text part of the document I was just reading. So like in terms of seconds between pages, like kind of going back and forth in a document, is there an easy way to go back and forth?
I think probably the only way for you to fully do that would be to kind of create like the anchors, the table of contents. If you want to literally sort of click back and forth through, what I would do, I would have multiple documents. I'd put my bibliography in one document, and then the chapter that I'm working on in another document, and then that way I can have both up on my screen or on multiple screens and flip between them a lot more quickly. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, so hopefully that was helpful, and definitely ask more questions. So with this practice, I do want to make sure that you are following some of the recommendations from yesterday in terms of making SMART goals, right? That you didn't just write as the task that you're currently working on, thesis, right? Or literature review. Hopefully you were a little more specific in that, right? I'm trying to synthesize sources on topic B. I am describing my research participants in my methods section, right? So hopefully you're all on board. If not, take just a second to really think about the specific task. Okay, so these are the instructions, and then I'm going to show you the prompt here in just a second. But so basically, I gave you several strategies that were sort of distinct, but what I'm doing here is adapting them, right? And this is what you should do. These are your tools. You can utilize them however you want to. So whether you combine things, whether you just pick mind dump and do that particular action, it's all fine. Do what works, okay? So what we're going to do here is I'm going to time you for 3 minutes. You're going to write as much as you can without stopping, right? Fingers don't leave the keyboards, pen doesn't, lift up from the paper. Go where your brain takes you, right? You're trying to think. Your writing is going to be slower than your brain. So get as much down as you can. If you start to sort of veer off, see if you can bring it back. Um, don't worry about complete sentences. Don't worry about editing. Don't worry about misspellings. You know what you mean, right? This is for you. So the goal is to just write fast. Okay. So these are the instructions. All right, so what I would like for you to write about for 3 minutes without stopping is one of two things, or you can combine and do both, whatever you like. So pick the current or the next task on your list, right? And everything that you know about that topic. So that can include sources, information that you still need to go locate alongside what you already know. It might be some of the things that you need to do in order to gather more information or make this thing happen. Or talk really specifically about this next step. So what are you prepared for right now? What do you still need to do? Maybe there's another step before this one, a mini step. Can that step be broken down even smaller into more manageable tasks? How can you plan for those sorts of things? Okay, so any of these that kind of resonate with you, I want you to write about it for 3 minutes. Starting 3, 2, 1, go. Apologies for the cat crying. One minute left. If you dropped out, jump back in. Ten seconds left. 5 seconds, wrap up that last idea. All right, time's up. Stop. So hopefully with this, you'll feel something, right? Whether your juices are flowing all of a sudden and you're feeling energized, like, oh, I could go do something on this project right now. Maybe you sort of know where it is you want to start, what your next thing is, how it is you want to go about doing it. You feel a little more prepared. Maybe you now have something that's on paper that you'll be able to work with, right? That you can cut out, paste somewhere else and build a draft around. Or maybe you just feel a little bit more confident. Maybe you wrote down something that lets you know that you know a little bit more than you thought you did, or you're a little bit more ready than you thought that you were. Okay, so hopefully, something in there sort of resonated, and you've got something that will help you move forward a little bit. Okay. Um, I do have a handout for you all that at the end I'll paste into the chat for everyone, that lists a lot of digital tools to help you with the strategies that I'm sort of talking about. So here's a handful of them that are on the handout, but I just kind of wanted you to get a sense of some of these that I'll be sharing with you as well. So the next piece of your strategies that I've got here for you are thinking about problems when sometimes you're just kind of stuck with time, right? So a lot of experts talk about the need to write every day, write 30 minutes every day, write 15 minutes every day. That's not something that ever worked for me. I felt too much pressure to carve time out every single day. For some of you, that might work. But a lot of times making that time to write is really sort of the problem, because we have a lot of other things going on in our lives. The strategies through here sort of help you think about being a little bit more mindful about how to pay attention to time as you are writing. So first, track your time. So track your time can help in a variety of ways, right? It might help you figure out where your time is getting sucked up. Maybe it's all happening in text messages, that you're getting throughout the day. It can help you think about how to eliminate distractions. And it can also help you figure out exactly how much time certain tasks take you, right? We often underestimate, because we've been taught that writing is easy, right? It's fingers on a keyboard. But it's not. There's a lot of things that have to happen. So tracking your time in terms of how long it takes you to do certain tasks can help you be more practical about the amount of time other things are going to take you moving forward. And this is something also to pay attention to in terms of the habits that work for you. Maybe it doesn't work for you to sit down for 4 hours every day. Maybe you do need to be taking breaks along the way, those kinds of things. So tracking time can help you identify that as well. Figure out when your most productive times of day are. Okay. This doesn't mean that you should only work at those times, right? Thinking about the perfect time of day, don't fall into that trap. But know, okay, I actually am most productive between 7 and 9 a.m., right? Well, then maybe that's when you want to try and carve out time to make sure that that you have at least a little bit of time in that time frame to work, right? That you're not watching TV at that point. Really carve out writing time. This is the thing that's very, very difficult to do. So find ways to have some support with this, right? So whether it's just you need that time listed on your calendar every day, a few times a week, whatever the case may be, and if it's there and you get the notification about it, you'll sit down and do it. Great, do that. If you need your help from friends, from family, hey, I need to work from this time to this time. Please don't bother me. Please check in to make sure that I'm working, that I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Do that, right? But really try and carve that time out. Set it up, know when it's going to happen, Don't schedule meetings then. Don't let other people bother you to set up social time, those kinds of things. Figure out, again, how often, what times of day, those kinds of things, and then really do stick to it as much as you possibly can. And it's really difficult to do. I completely, 100% admit that. So do whatever you can in terms of getting support from others, from digital tools, to make sure that you're living up to it once you carve that time out. So chunk your writing. So again, thinking about being really specific, not saying, hey, I'm going to write this, this chapter today, but breaking it down into something that's much more manageable. I'm going to write up 2 results today, or I'm going to respond to one of my research questions in my conclusion chapter today. Something like that, right? It's something that's manageable that you can probably get done in a shorter amount of time. Do set regular goals, whether they're words, whether they're pages, whether they're hours of time that you want to spend. Anything that helps you progress is a good thing, right? And goals, having them, knowing that this is what I want to have done at this point in time, or have this many words written by, whenever, can be really, really helpful. One thing about setting regular goals that I would say, if you have not looked at your overall timeline for your project and started with the deadline and worked your way back, do that. When is your deadline? When is the submission, prior to, especially if it's a thesis defense, right? When do you have to submit prior to the defense? When does the thing before that have to happen, right? And work your way back to the present and figure out exactly what needs to happen when, so that you're meeting the benchmarks to get you to that deadline. And finally, reward yourself, right? No one is going to reward you but yourself. So whether, again, tie these to your goals if you can. You've written 3 pages and now you get a candy bar. After 2 hours of writing, go for a walk. After you submit a chapter to your advisor, binge watch Schitt's Creek. Whatever it is, give yourself some sort of reward for working hard. That's going to help you also make sure that you're being productive, make sure that you're carving out time, because you're rewarding yourself each of those times. So you've maybe already thought about some of this stuff in the last 24 or 48 hours, but I do want you to take a few minutes and look at your schedule for this week, for the weeks leading up to spring semester starting on the 19th, and maybe even for the whole semester. See if you can identify some strategies that you can implement to make time to write. So again, maybe we're just looking at the next couple of days, or if you want to look more long-term, do that. But so think about things that you could do. So maybe you're going to set a timer on your phone to help you keep track of how much you're writing every day. Maybe you're gonna take some time to put in all of your semester obligations into your calendar to see where you can carve writing time out during your weeks. Maybe you want to identify some goals within a timeline and figure out where you can reward yourself along the way. But just take maybe 4 or 5 minutes and think about what you can do. Maybe go ahead and start building those tasks and strategies in. What can you do to make sure that you're making time to write?
Hi, Erin. So we have
Hi.
2 questions in the chat. The first was, in terms of speed or free writing, are there good sources for daily writing prompts? And the second is, how do you track your time?
Okay, so for daily writing prompts, what I have typically come across as more creative writing prompts. So if that's something, you just kind of want to get your juices flowing on something that's completely unrelated to your task at hand, if you just Google like daily writing prompt, something like that, you'll find zillions of them. Um, if you want the prompts to be more focused on the work that you're doing, it's going to be best for you to come up with them on your own. So I would say think about what tasks you want to get done in this moment or today or this week, and pick one or pick a couple, and really think about that. It really could be, here's a topic that I know I need to cover in my literature review. What do I know about it? Who's written about it? What do I still need to find out? Right? It could just be that. It could be, oh, I need to work on my results, right? So maybe pick one of the, again, sort of key results that you want to describe in that chapter, and really focus on that. What do I know? What do I think about this? Where is it going? How does it connect to the others, right? And you're probably not going to use all of that, but you'll have something in there that's going to work. In terms of tracking my time, I'm going to give you, again, some tools for that here in a minute. It really, for me, it depends on the project I'm working on. And so this is why I try and give you a lot of strategies, because sometimes they're going to work and sometimes they're not, and you're going to shift to doing something else. So I've used Pomodoro timers, which I can talk about in a minute. I've done that before. And typically what I've done is really just try to look at my schedule, figure out when I have had time to write, and carve time out. If I teach Tuesday, Thursday, then maybe Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, I'm going to write. That's worked for me sometimes. I've had writing groups where one semester, every Friday, we got together for like 5 hours and we sat in a room together and we all worked. And that was actually super helpful. I didn't think I was going to like that, and I ended up really liking it. The only rule was that we couldn't do anything for our classes for our students. It had to be our own work during that time. So yeah, I think there's really a variety of ways to kind of track your time, to think about when is going to work for you. And then there are also lots of tools, just to digital tools that you start a timer and you work on something and then you stop it, and okay, this is how much I got done, or this is how long X, Y, or Z took me. So yeah, I think really it's sort of about finding what works for you, and playing around with different things until you get those figured out. So I talked for a long time, so let me give you one more minute to think about what can you do yourself for the next week, for the next couple weeks, for the semester, to make time to write. How can you plan for that? All right, so here's some more digital tools. Again, these will all be on the handout that I'm giving you. So the Pomodoro timer that I mentioned, this is a process in which you set a timer for 25 minutes. There are actual Pomodoro timers, so you don't have to create your own. And you focus on one task. You put all distractions away. You focus on one task for 25 minutes. Then you get a 5-minute break, and you can check your email, do other things, whatever during those 5 minutes, and then you start over again. After 4 rounds of that, then you get a longer break, 30-minute break. So that's one way to help you kind of focus and really time yourself to keep moving forward. See how many intervals it might take you. Toggle, the one listed here on the bottom here, that is a tool for tracking your time. There are lots of activity trackers like Toggle. I'm just sort of giving you ones that either I've used or the people that I know have recommended to me. But that's one that you start the timer when you begin your task, and then you stop it when you finish, to actually see exactly how long it's taking you. Okay. So then the third component of strategies that I'm going to mention here, deal with maintaining focus. Because often this is the problem, right? We live in a world where there are lots and lots of distractions. So staying focused on our task at hand when there are much more fun things to do can be a challenge. So very much related to, thinking about your environment, right, is find productive locations. So again, not a perfect location where you can only work in that one place, right? But where can you work that allows you to really have a focused environment, that has limited distractions. Maybe the workrooms in the library, once we can get back to campus and do that. Computer labs on campus, a lot of those will be open again in spring semester. Maybe it's your bed, maybe it's your dining room table, right? But figure these things out. Find the place that can be productive for you, or places preferably. Eat and stay hydrated. This is something that is very basic, but it's absolutely necessary. Probably a lot of you have had moments, during finals week, things like that, where just kind of these everyday basic actions sort of fall to the wayside. But this is something that's really vital to you being able to do your best work. So make sure that you are eating, that you are drinking, that you are taking breaks, that you're sleeping, those kinds of things. Okay? So really think about what habits work best for you. So going back to a lot of those questions that I asked beforehand, make your tea, your coffee, get that bag of Doritos out of the vending machine, whatever, like have those things ready, for the time that you've set that you're going to write. Figure out if a Pomodoro timer is good for you because working for 25 minutes is about as long as you can focus before you need a break, or if you're going to write in longer bursts, figure that out. Have your Apple Music or whatever like tuned up, ready to go if you want to listen to music. Have these things sort of ready. Figure out what those habits are that help you be most productive. I listened to Mozart's Requiem in D basically on repeat my entire dissertation. I don't know why. It was just the thing that kind of like stuck with me, and I just kept listening to. So find that thing. Don't let anybody make fun of you for it, but just do it, right? Switch it up. So related to other things that we've sort of talked about, if you get stuck, find something else to do, right? Have editing tasks ready so that you can jump into something like that, do your bibliography, jump to another chapter, another section, whatever, just so that you're still moving forward, but getting to use a different part of your brain, think about something a little bit different, so that it feels a little bit like you're taking a break. I found I got a lot more done when I did this sort of thing, when it was like, oh, okay, I'll take a break, but let me, go edit this section first because it's ready to be edited, and then I would edit it, and often I'd be like, oh, great, I did that. Now I think I could go do this other thing. So let me go do that instead. So again, see what works for you. And do take breaks, right? Don't just try and be a robot. You're a human. So figure out, times that you can just give your brain really a break, that you can get away, you can sleep, you can relax, stretch, meditate, even if it's just for 5 minutes, or go, if you can, for a walk to the gym, any kinds of physical movement activity during a break is going to help you rejuvenate. Okay, it's going to help you keep your focus. So again, here's some tools for focus. So just sort of random ones that I found, including ones that will lock you out of apps, of websites, things like that, so that you can't go do mindless procrastinating activities, right? Thinking about other ways, right? So sometimes you can shift to another writing activity. But sometimes, especially for those of you who are maybe more visual or audio, things like that, you need something a little bit different, right? And so I do think a lot of the strategies that I've talked about in terms of, hey, write that down. You don't necessarily have to write, right? You can create mind maps. You can draw things out. You don't necessarily have to do these in exactly the ways that I'm telling you to. So if you know there's another way that works better for you, do those, right? Use those strategies. And so here are sort of a few alternative ways. So if you're feeling like you're stuck on something and need another task that you want to maybe help you move forward with, or if you're stuck on maybe these particular things, here are some strategies for those particularly. So thinking about like organization, clarity, these sorts of things, you can do a reverse outline. And so what a reverse outline is you literally go through, whatever it is, your chapter, your section, and you, next to every paragraph, write down what the main idea, the main topic of that paragraph is. And then you can check to see, hey, did I cover everything I needed to? Does this order make sense? Those kinds of things, so that, oh, I left this thing out, or, oh, this actually should go here because there's a better connection. Let me add a transition, right? A lot of times that can be really helpful to make sure that the section or your paper is organized in the way that you want it to be. Maybe you kind of just need something a little more visual, right? You just need to get on Google and you want to see if there's a connection among various ideas. You might do an image search of your keywords to sort of see, like, are these kind of ideas all coming up together, right? Or are we seeing similar themes here among what's presented in the images for each keyword? And that might also help you think about sort of organizing your ideas, what connects to what, how you can transition from one to another if you need to move things around. If you're looking for specificity, especially if we're thinking about like your results or your methods and you're trying to be really, really, really clear, right, so that others can follow along, think about the journalist questions in terms of who, what, when, where, why, how, those kinds of things. Have you answered all of those that you need to for each of your results, for each of the steps in your methods, right? Thinking through your ideas and getting feedback, stop writing and talk to somebody, right? This is where I'm stuck, I'm having trouble articulating this, that, or the other. Like, can I talk it through with you? A lot of times it's easier for us to talk, right? Because we can kind of talk in circles and go around and think as we're going. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's what I've been trying to say, what I've been trying to write this whole time. Right. So talk to others. And this is where the writing center consultants can be really valuable to you, because they have 30 minutes that they're there with you, and it's fine if you just sort of want to come in and say, I need to talk about this thing that I'm trying to write about, and I can't articulate it the way I want to, right? And they can ask you questions, and you can just sort of talk in circles until you figure out what it is that you're trying to write. So all of these strategies can be helpful. So whether you're doing it on paper, by yourself, whether you're doing some of these things in other ways with other people, they all do help you progress your writing. Okay. So other general tips, do get support from other people. So that can be in writing groups. Like I know some of you are setting up this week. Find people who can encourage you, whether it's friends, whether it's family. I have definitely had friends of mine just, once a week we checked in with each other to say, I did this, and this week, right? And that was enough to just know that somebody was checking in, that I was gonna have to write that email that says, here's what I've done, so that I didn't have an email that was like, I didn't do anything, I'm sorry, right? It held me accountable. But so find ways to get support from other people. Give yourself credit, right? You've written something, right? And often that's the hardest part, is just getting started, having something on the page to work with. So remind yourself that as you're making progress, you are making progress, right? Maybe it's not as fast as you want. Maybe it's not as, spectacular as you want. We can find a million ways to beat ourselves up about the work that we're doing, but try to find ways to sort of flip that, right? What is it that I have done? What progress am I making, right? Hold on to those positives. Remember that no one, I don't think ever, has written a perfect first draft. If they have, everybody else just hates them. But I'd be shocked if it has ever happened. And it's not going to be different for you. So don't hold yourself to that kind of standard, right? Writing is a skill. It's something that takes practice. You just have to keep working at it. And yes, some people find it easier than others, but still, even those people have to keep working on it, keep doing, redoing, revising, reworking. Keep in mind that you are not your writing, especially when you're getting feedback from your professors, from your committee. Separate the paper from yourself, okay? Criticism hurts a whole lot more if you feel like it's being directed at you personally than when it's about something that you've done, right? This is not about your intelligence. This is not about you as a student, as a person. This is about what is on the paper. So try as best as you can to separate that. What's on the paper, you can change, right? You can rework that. It'll be okay. So try not to take that and internalize it. And then sort of along those lines, really listen as you're revising, right? Pay attention to the feedback that you're getting. Really work to apply it in ways that can help you improve your skill set. Revise as soon as possible, once you get feedback, just because you're going to be more focused, right? You're going to know the content a little bit better in those moments. But the more that you listen, the more you pay attention to the feedback that you're getting. Again, you don't always have to take every piece of feedback given to you and apply it. You're the writer. You get to make the choice what you integrate and what you don't, and how you integrate it. But the feedback is there for you. It can be helpful, even if you set it aside and say, no, I'm not going to do that. You've thought through it, you've figured out other perspectives than maybe what you have going in and looking at your own writing. So there are a few helpful texts that I wanted to share with you all as well, and maybe these are ones that have come up at other points in the boot camp. Again, these are on the handout for you, so you don't need to just jot these down. But these, the first two are ones that helped me a lot as I was working on my dissertation. So writing your dissertation in 15 minutes a day. I did not work 15 minutes a day, like I was saying before, but it helped me think about, oh, here's some strategies that maybe are helpful for me, or at least kind of help ground me a little bit more in, one, I am not alone. I'm not the only person doing this. People have come before me, people have come after me, and we're all in this together. But also just sort of gave me some perspectives on, oh, okay, this is a habit that I have that has worked in the past for classes or things like that. This is how it's not going to work in this particular setting, right? And that can be really helpful because, again, not every strategy is going to work for all projects. How to write a lot, a practical guide to productive academic writing. Again, a lot of helpful strategies in terms of the ways that we think about writing, the ways that we, strategies that we implement at different times, especially as students, that don't work so well when we have projects like what you're working on, where it's a lot more independent, right? We don't have teachers checking in with us regularly. We don't have all these other activities in the classroom to help us build towards the final product, right? You're kind of on your own, so this is something that can be helpful. And then the last one is the book that I mentioned previously by Helen Sword, Air and Light and Time and Space. And so this is where she studied a variety of researchers to get a sense of how they write, what works for them when they write. So the website, again, that I'll have on the handout, can help you sort of think about all of your habits and what those mean for you in terms of being a writer. So before I ask you all to share some of your strategies, because I think probably you all have strategies that that I have not mentioned through this presentation. So I definitely want to hear some of those, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen before that happens so I can see everything on the chat. I just wanted to speak really specifically about resources at UNLV. So if you're not doing it, talk to your advisor, talk to your professors, whether on your committee or otherwise, right? Find some mentors in the field that, you know, can give you feedback, that can give you advice and guidance. You know, it doesn't always have to be something that's related to your topic. You know, sometimes it can just be like, hey, are you sleeping, right? Having somebody check in with you about those things, or to go ask them like, hey, what strategies worked for you? What did you do when you got stuck, you know, on this particular problem? Or how do you start writing your results section? Where do you start? Those kinds of things can be helpful, right? They've done this before. So what they did might be something that can be helpful for you. As you're doing now, attend workshops. So there are a variety that the graduate college offers during the semester. The Writing Center is going to have some this semester, and there's a variety of others that happen across campus. So figure out, you know, ones that might be useful for you. Find ones online. You know, don't be afraid to sit and see what people have to say about the things that you're struggling with. Don't use that as a procrastination tool, so be careful about that. You know, again, we can kind of get sucked into like, oh, I'm going to learn how to do this task, and then it just becomes about, you know, getting more and more and more advice as opposed to now you really have to like sit down and start doing it. So do be careful of that, but find things that are going to help you. Make appointments with career services, academic advisors, those sorts of things, if that's going to be useful for you in terms of thinking about this particular project, how to move forward with it, what you can do to you know, help you carve out time to think about what's going to be beneficial for you moving forward with the project or beyond this project, right? Eventually the project is going to end and something else is going to happen, right? And so these people can sort of help direct you on, okay, what is that transition going to look like? Of course, come to the Writing Center. Like I said, we have consultants who, if nothing else, they love to talk about writing. And you don't have to have anything written to come. You can have a whole lot written and come, and it can be at any stage. So if you're just stuck and want to talk to somebody, come. If you need particular advice on how do I synthesize sources in my literature review, we can help with that. So think about some of those particular needs, those moments when talking with somebody about something in particular is going to help move you forward. We're there for you for those things. And also remember that online resources are super helpful. Hopefully all of you are doing this. I'm older than you all are. And it sort of was a strange moment when I think early in my PhD program when I asked somebody how to do something and they were like, well, I don't know. And they went and Googled it. And I was like, oh, I could Google how to do that. That makes sense. So keep that in mind, right? That there are a lot of helpful resources, even workshops, right, that are online. A lot of universities have a variety of resources for writing a thesis, writing a publication, writing a dissertation. So go find some that are helpful for the particular task at hand. Okay. Again, be careful of getting too sucked into that and it becoming a crutch for procrastination. But these resources are there. So when you're feeling stuck, seek them out. So just a little bit briefly about the Writing Center. I just want to mention that we have two types of consultations. So one is the virtual consultation in which we use Google Meet. So similar to WebEx, where you work one-on-one with a consultant for 30 minutes. So again, you can have a paper, you cannot have a paper, you can have an outline, you cannot have an outline, whatever, your question, your concern. You want somebody to read through something with you to see if it makes sense, we can do that. Hopefully after this semester we'll be back working face-to-face for any of you that will be around in the fall, but for now virtual is what we have. We also have the online writing lab. So this is where you have a more kind of polished document, and you submit it to the OWL, and within 24 to 48 hours typically, we'll look at up to 5 pages, so you can let us know which 5 pages you want feedback on. And you'll get written feedback about those. So obviously virtual consultations tend to be more helpful just because you can interact, you can ask questions, follow up on comments, things like that. But the OWL can be helpful if you're pretty close to being done, and you kind of just want somebody to like read it and be like, is this making sense? I feel pretty good about it. What does another pair of eyes say? Okay. And then that's nice too because it's asynchronous, right? You submit it and then you'll get it emailed back to you. We have a variety of handouts on our website. We're going to be updating a lot of those this semester. We're going to have a synchronous workshop schedule this semester, but we're also working to convert a lot of our workshops into video format, and those are going to be on our website here as well this semester. So again, if you're working at like 2 a.m. and you want help with whatever research questions, right? Like you could go and potentially find a 20 or 30-minute workshop video on those topics. So keep these sorts of things in mind again as you're working, as maybe you're getting stuck. See if we have some of these resources for you, perhaps before you go and Google them otherwise. So I think those are sort of the things on our website that will be most helpful for you as you keep working. But you can go on and see who our consultants are, those sorts of things as well, if you want to be more particular about who you pick to work with when you schedule appointments. Also, let me just mention, we do have a variety of social media outlets. We do post a lot of kind of tips on those. We had one on overcoming writer's block at the beginning of last month. So we kind of rotate through a lot of those sorts of things, as well as just, you know, fun writing memes and whatnot. So do follow us. We'll announce all of our major events and stuff on social media as well. So just search for us through those. Okay, let me see if I can stop sharing, and then yay, see everyone here. Okay, so I see a couple of questions. So to do an image search, you can just go to Google, and instead of up where it says all at the top, just select image, type in your keyword, and it will just search for images. A lot of images that exist out there, you can actually drag into the Google search box if you're in the images tab, and you can actually like search that actual image, and it'll tell you, you know, potentially where it came from, who the artist is, those kinds of things. A tool for checking for repetitive phrases, chain of identical words. That's, I'm trying to think if I know of a tool for that. Phrases. I don't think I know of any. If anybody else does, I'd be happy to have y'all type it in. Yeah, I think really it's just sort of the edit find option is the only thing I've ever used for that. Yeah, I can't think of any other that looks specifically for that within a document. No, I was about to say another option, but I don't think it's going to look for a repetition either. I think it's just going to look for changes. So I don't think there is. But yes, if somebody else has one, please share it here in the chat. And is there a limit on how many times we can submit for the OWL? There is. You can submit up to 2 times per week. So again, we'll only look at 5 pages at a time. And our time limit is 45 minutes. So, you know, if it's really, really, really dense, it's possible that we wouldn't be able to cover a full 5 pages. But typically 45 minutes is about how long it takes for us to be able to give written feedback on 5 pages of work. So 45 minutes, 5 pages each time, and then up to 2 times per week. But we definitely have multiple people who submit twice a week, every week. We see that a lot with the OWL. So I do not at the moment take appointments just because I'm kind of managing everyone else. Hopefully at some point in the near future, I will have the time to do that. But you absolutely can make appointments with any of our consultants on an ongoing basis. So when we get our schedule all set, it'll be through Campus Connect. So you'll sign into Campus Connect, and you can either search for like a particular day and time that, you know, this is when I have free, this is when I want to have my consultation, or I've worked with this person before, I really liked them, and you can search for their name and then see when they're working and schedule with them individually. And yeah, so absolutely, I recommend doing that. Specific feedback on OWL, you can. We tend to focus more on what we call higher order concerns. So we're looking at more kind of global issues, like if your ideas are coming across clearly, if the organization works. So we will look at like grammar to some extent. We're not gonna like go through and edit your paper, but we might say like, oh, hey, you have a problem with possessive apostrophes, and we'll give you a resource to help you learn about what the grammar rule is. We'll maybe highlight a few of those instances so that you see where the problem exists. But then, because we've only got a short amount of time, our expectation is that once we can help you see what that is, then you'll have the ability to go do it yourself, right? At the end of the day, this is our goal, is to help teach you so that you can do this work eventually on your own, right? So that you won't need people to help you for the same things, at least over and over. But yeah, absolutely. So when you submit the OWL and when you come in for the virtual consultation too, you can write out, let us know, here are the things that I specifically want covered. With the OWL, we do not do anything with your works cited page. So that's something, if you have issues with your bibliography, with your references page, that you need to make a virtual consultation for, just because the little edits that you have to make in terms of like italicize this, a comma goes here, not a period, those kinds of things, it's too difficult to write about. It's a lot easier to do in person. So that's kind of one caveat, that we don't do that with the OWLs, but we will do it with the virtual consultations. But yeah, definitely let us know what you want specific help with, because that helps the consultant prepare a little bit beforehand so that they can come into the consultation and know about it. Consultants who have written dissertations, we don't have anybody who is a PhD consultant. We do have some who have their MA and MFA. So they've done theses, but have not done dissertations at this point. So yeah, I think that's all. Good question. Let me scroll up just in case I missed something. Okay, it looks like earlier questions got answered, which is awesome. So just because we've got a few minutes left, I wondered what strategies do you all have to whether overcome being stuck? What is it that you do to overcome that? What do you do maybe to help you stop procrastinating, to focus? What do you help you do to make sure that you are carving out time? What are some of the things that you have done that have been really helpful for you, that you feel like others could benefit from as well? I'll give you a minute to think about that, and I'll look at these other questions here. Or in general, what kind of writing advice have you been given that's been useful? What do you think others could benefit from? So while you're thinking and hopefully writing, so you can select a consultant for an OWL. This one's a little bit more difficult just because of the way that the OWL form comes through us. So what I would recommend doing is to send the Writing Center a separate email and say, I just submitted an OWL. I would like for A, B, or C to work on it. It also, the the consultants working on owls only work like 1 or 2 times a week. So that also makes it a little more difficult, just because, if they're not working at on the day that you submit it, then we'll have to get back in touch to be like, well, do you want to wait 3 days for them to review it, or would you like somebody to review it now? So you can, but just know there might be a little exchange. And if you know that you then want to work with that person all the time, then we can make that arrangement. That is something that we could set up to sort of be an ongoing thing. And so then the question about the samples of dissertation proposals. Right now, we probably won't do that this semester, just because a lot of the handouts that we have on our website are in need of being revised, and there's just unfortunately only so much time in a day to get everything updated. Also, the difficulty with offering samples is that with different disciplines, these documents all can look very different. So, a dissertation proposal in theater is not at all going to look like a dissertation proposal in finance, right? And then also a lot of times individual departments, like even, the same discipline across different universities are going to have different expectations. So what I would recommend doing is definitely go and find some online, but also talk to graduate students who came before you. In my PhD program, we had a repository where we had previous students' proposals, comps questions. I'm trying to think what else. Don't remember. Those two at least. I think there were a handful of other things that we had just to kind of help. Or I think it was our bibliographies for our comprehensive exams. So what I would recommend is getting in touch with some of the people who came before you in the program, in part because you know that they were successful, right? And successful probably with the same faculty members or some of the same faculty members that you're working with as well. So I think in many ways that's going to be a lot more beneficial than just getting sort of a generic one from somewhere else. So yeah, see if you can find that, and maybe even if people are willing, start a repository that, then students in the department can kind of pass on to one another into the future. I found that incredibly helpful, because you're right, having models is a really great idea, and I highly recommend that. If you haven't gone and found some examples of the document that you're writing, go do that, because it's really hard to just wing these things, right? And others have come before you, they've done that work. So see what worked for them, and especially if it's somebody in your program working with, your major professor, that's going to be super, super helpful. No advice, no strategies for anybody? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so you really think about like the positive, the impacts, and like what the outcome is that you envision. Hey, this paper is going to be published. I think that's a really great idea. One, because again, it kind of shifts away from the negative, right? We often get really stuck in the negative, what's not working. But hey, this is where it's going to be in the future. This is going to be a good thing. I just have to like struggle to get there. I think that's super, super helpful, and it puts it out there, right? That this is achievable for you. So it no longer becomes so much of a, well, I hope this works, or, I'm not sure if I can do this, but hey, this is going to happen. Maybe not immediately, but at some point I'm going to achieve this. I think that's a really, really good way to reframe the way you think about a project. That's awesome. Taking one paragraph at a time. Yes. Yes. Often what gets us stuck is that we're overwhelmed because we see too much, right? And if we can narrow it down and focus just on something small, every 5 minutes that we write is moving us towards something bigger. Every paragraph that we write is moving us towards something bigger, right? I think that's super, super helpful. Yeah. Any others? All right, well, one more. Focus on a solid thesis statement. Yes. Also write an abstract that guides my paper. Yeah, I think anything like that that can set up, here's, what I'm trying to do, is super helpful, because you can constantly come back to that and be like, this is what I have, to do next. Does it get me to that, right? Does it help me meet that goal? Does it help me answer that question? Whatever the case may be. So I think that's super helpful. And yeah, an abstract that guides the paper, that gives us a sense of, where it's going to go, why it's doing what it's doing. And if you don't like the idea of an abstract, an outline can be helpful. And even, if the outline is just a list, like my paper needs to cover A, B, C, D, E, F, G, on down. If it's not, it needs to be organized in this way. Don't get hung up on those kinds of things. But yeah, I think those are super, super helpful. Definitely. Okay. LaTeX, yes. I know a lot of people who use this because of the capabilities for formatting, especially if you're using a lot of figures, those kinds of things, images that you're having to input, tends to work better than Word. So yeah, I think that can be super helpful. I think it's better to do it in Word, transfer to LaTeX. Honestly, I think whatever works best for you. It depends on your content. It depends on the way that you work. Yeah, I say if it makes sense for you to start writing in LaTeX, do it. I think it's LaTeX, right? Maybe I'm saying it. I don't think I've ever actually seen it written. That's why I think I'm messing up the pronunciation. Anyway, not important. But yeah, so I say do what makes sense for you. If you're somebody that kind of needs to do a lot of those formatting things as you work, if you're in the results section and you need to input a lot of figures, images that Word is making really difficult, switch. If you can wait and do that at the end, if it's beneficial for you to do it later, wait and switch at that point. So yeah, I think just see sort of what works for you. And then before I forget, where did this go? Sorry, my drive just, they're in the wrong place. Let me send you all, as the very last thing, the handout that I was talking about. And I will also send this to Nevina so that, along with the PDF of the presentation, so that she can get it to you all as well. But this has all of the digital tools that I was talking about. So hopefully maybe something in there will be helpful. So thank you all so much.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. This was super helpful. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Good luck, everyone. Lots of writing.